What's going on, everybody? Dots Gaming here, and today we're going to be talking about what I'm deciding to main in World of Warcraft Shadowlands, and I'm going to talk about why I am also deciding to main said class. Unfortunately, I don't have access to the beta, and my PTR is having a lot of problems. So what we're going to be doing, instead of just, doing beta footage, is we're just going to be talking about Shadowlands. I'm going to make some videos talking about Shadowlands, plans for Shadowlands, what I'm going to be doing, and why I'm going to be doing it. And so today's video, like I said, is going to be talking about our main character, because choosing a main going into a brand new expansion is super important. You want to start off on a good foot on a class that you like, so that you make sure, whether you're PvPing or PvEing, you're not behind other players and that you are on par with them. And you want to pick something that, at least in my opinion, that you can try to do for as long during the expansion as possible. Like I said, just to make sure you're on pace with everybody. But I want to hear from you guys too. What do you plan on maining in Shadowlands? You're going to be using it PvP, PvE, both. Let me know down in those comments. And if you guys do decide you like this video, I'd appreciate it if you smacked a like on it. And if you guys like what I'm talking about as well, definitely hit that sub button and the bell so that you can keep up to date with all the WoW content on my channel. I am now a full-time WoW YouTuber. We have taken a step back from my old game that I was playing, and so I am doing WoW once again on my YouTube channel, and so I have a lot of content, especially arena content, planned for Shadowlands. But enough with the self-plug. We are going to be talking about what I've decided to main in Shadowlands. Now, I came back to Battle for Azeroth about 2 months ago, almost 3 now. I came back mid-July. Battle for Azeroth was one of the first expansions I just really didn't play. I quit midway through Legion fully. I really didn't even play that much of Legion. I played maybe the first patch and a half of Legion, and that was about it. And then I took a really long break from WoW because I was playing the Elder Scrolls Online. And then when Battle for Azeroth came out, I tried it, and I just wasn't for me. It wasn't for me, and I took a really at that point when I tried BFA and was like, I just don't like this expansion. I thought that was it for me in World of Warcraft, but you know how it is with WoW, guys. You never truly quit, and Shadowlands has definitely piqued my interest and looks really fun. And since I have not been enjoying the other game I was playing and making videos for as much, I figured, you know what, let's come back to Azeroth and start making content for WoW again. And obviously the question when I came back was, what class do I want to play? And over my time as a World of Warcraft player, I've played a lot of different classes. I think the only class I did not play was a shaman. I think shaman's the only class I have not ever played at all. And the only I obviously knew I wanted to play a dot class, obviously. So for me, it's either warlock, possibly death knight, shadow priest, Pharaoh Druid, a lot of the more dot heavy classes. And I started to think about my experiences with those classes and why I liked them, why I maybe didn't like them, why I re-rolled from them. I was watching footage from people playing the various classes, and very quickly I narrowed my my pool of potential mains down to 2 classes, either Pharaoh Druid or Shadow Priest. And I really had a lot of trouble deciding, even because I wanted to come back in BFA and play the class I was obviously going to go into Shadowlands with. But I ended up basically having to flip a coin in a way, because I wasn't sure which class I wanted to play, and I chose my Shadow Priest. I liked both classes because they're very similar in the regards of they are dot focused damage dealing specs that also are hybrids. I like the hybrid class kit. I like being able to heal and have utility outside of dealing damage. And so those 2 classes, they're very similar in that regard, except for one's melee and one's ranged. Pharaoh Druid now a little bit more focused on burst with bite, but still it's got that dot support, with Shadow Priest being focused pretty much solely on dots and having the, a lot of utility with Battle for Azeroth, just because, damage with void form. I could go on a void form thing for a long time, but we're not going to go down that rabbit hole. I am glad to see, though, that Shadow Priest getting appropriate changes going into Shadowlands. But it kind of, like I said, it left me wondering which one of those I wanted to try. And so I rolled the dice, flipped the coin, and we did Shadow Priest for the end of Battle for Azeroth. And I started playing it, started having a really good time on it. I really just missed playing WoW and was having a good time on it. But as I started to play it, the rose-colored glasses of how I remembered my Shadow Priest started to clear up, and I very quickly started to remember the things I didn't enjoy about the class. I think I learned from playing the Shadow Priest at the end of BFA that while I do enjoy casters, I definitely enjoy melee more. Just having to be very slow on that Shadow Priest, getting so easily trained by melee, and having just, almost the entire kit is Shadow, so God forbid you get kicked on Shadow, you're just locked out of everything. The Void form, I really didn't like in Battle for Azeroth, and granted, they are switching back to a Devouring Plague Builder Spender kind of setup for Shadowlands, which I think is really cool. The Shadow Priest Reworker looks absolutely amazing. But even with that change to the gameplay, and even with the gameplay looking way more engaging in that regards going into Shadowlands, I still don't like, I think the whole, I don't know, I think it's just the whole caster thing isn't really doing it for me right now. And another big reason too that I think the Shadow Priest wasn't really my favorite with the end of BFA is because now I make content on the game too. It's not like I'm just playing. I also make content for the game, YouTube, Twitch, and Shadow Priest. If any of you guys have ever played Shadow Priest, you will know that Shadow Priest is really not that fun in twos. I know I posted a lot of twos content on my YouTube channel for the end of BFA. It was just because trying to pug threes would be so incredibly hard. And I have a team lined up for threes going into Shadowlands, but it's not until Shadowlands that they're available to play because they're not really playing right now. And so I was just like, okay, I'll just pug some twos. And while I was trying to do my best to have fun and make the best of the situation, I very quickly realized that the class is just not enjoyable for me in twos. And being that I'm not going to always have a team online to play threes, and as we start gaining rating in threes in Shadowlands, I'm not going to want to just, let's say we're at, 2200 or something, and they're not able to play one night. I don't want to just, let's say I'm on my Shadow Priest, right? I don't want to be like, well, I'm going to go pug with people, because if I lose rating, now I'm behind, and that just makes me frustrated. Or I'd have to go into twos and just kind of be a little bit miserable. But the thing with something like the Pharaoh Druid is that the Pharaoh Druid is good in twos. It's good in threes. It's more well balanced in terms of the brackets that it can perform inside of a PvP environment. And I think that's also part of it's a huge part of the reason why I was started to look back towards my Pharaoh Druid again. And I looked into my Pharaoh Druid because I only did some preliminary research into him when I came back to World of Warcraft. And when I looked into the Pharaoh Druid, it looked overall pretty similar to how it was when I played it in early Legion. I'd say maybe the only difference that I noticed pretty quickly was that there was much more of a focus on Ferocious Bite and less of a focus on the damage over time skills, which was, a little upsetting to see, but not enough to deter me from the class. I still like the class. I still think it's fun. And I started to look into the Shadowlands stuff for it too. And at first, people were super poo-poo on Pharaoh Druid and Shadowlands, but the more I started watching, other people who play Pharaoh really consistently play it on Twitch, I watched YouTube videos on it. It looks really fun. The big thing I feel like people are saying in terms of the issues with Pharaoh is that it really just needs a bit of a damage tweak. But a lot of people have been saying that it just feels fun to play. And from what I've been watching of it, I'm going to have to agree. And especially, I personally am a huge fan of the Adaptive Swarm Covenant skill for Pharaoh Druid. I do love Mind Games for the Shadow Priest as well, but that skill for Maldraxxus with just another dot, and then it increases your dots by 20%. I think that is sick. And then when it jumps to a ally, it heals them, and then it increases HOTS by 20%. I just love that interaction. I think it's really, really cool. Mind Games does look sick, but Adaptive Swarm for the Pharaoh Druid looks really, really fun. And so while the Shadow Priest rework definitely was like, I really like that. That looks cool. And it shoots back to when I did play my Shadow Priest, which was in Mists of Pandaria, which is when there was Shadow Orbs as the mechanic for Shadow Priest. It was basically a builder spender where you built up Shadow Orbs and then you spent them on Devouring Plague. It's very similar now with Insanity. We're going into Shadowlands. But I still think that after playing the Shadow Priest, I think that from a PvP perspective, having just being a caster and being just a main primary focus for being trained, not having twos is a very enjoyable bracket. Being able to be so easily locked out of my whole class kit. And I know a lot of that just comes with obviously, getting better at fake casting and stuff. And I started to improve on that a crap load during the season. But I don't know. There was just something about the Shadow Priest as I was playing it that I wasn't enjoying, you know? I just wasn't enjoying it. And the Pharaoh Druid, I remember I watched even some of my old videos from my Pharaoh Druid, and there wasn't really any huge pain points I had in terms of playing the Druid. Like I said, you know, I do believe in Shadowlands, it could use a bit of a numerical tune, but in terms of the actual gameplay itself, I always really loved it. I loved the high uptime and the high mobility. I loved the dot pressure combined with the burst from Ferocious Bite. I liked having incredibly potent off healing. I like, especially now we're going to have access to clone at a base. We're going to be getting additional CCs off of the affinity line. Like, Druid just looks incredibly fun going into Shadowlands. And so for those reasons, I'm probably going to end up maining that Pharaoh Druid. Like I said, I've always liked hybrids. I do think now after playing my Shadow Priest skin at the end of BFA, melee is a little bit more suited to me. And Pharaoh Druid and Shadow Priest both kind of tick all three of the boxes that I have, which is like hybrid, dot focused, or I think, wait, that's only 2 boxes. So just, yeah, hybrid and dot focused, you know? And that, again, that obviously those two conditions together obviously very much narrow down my pool of potential classes. But like I said, it's Pharaoh Druid and Shadow Priest. And after playing the Shadow Priest and looking, you know, for a couple of months now at the end of BFA, because like I said, I did just come back in July. And after playing the class and then looking into how it's changing in Shadowlands, while the rework, like I said, does look really, really fun. For me, it doesn't, you know, it doesn't change some of the fundamental issues I have with the class. But with Pharaoh Druid, it just looks crazy enjoyable and really, really fun. I think the biggest concerns I have, though, if I was to talk about any concerns that I have, would be the Pharaoh Druid's viability in Mythic Plus going into Shadowlands. I am mainly a PvP player and would want to PvE as minimally as possible just to get what I need out of it. But admittedly, I do think Shadow Priest is, from what I've seen, Shadow Priest is looking a little bit better for Mythic Plus. I don't know if that has changed or not, but I believe Shadow Priest, with all of the tuning and changes it was getting to its talent trees, that Shadow Priest was looking a bit better for Mythic Plus. But from what I've seen on Pharaoh Druid, the biggest issue and why it isn't as crazy viable, or like near the meta, I guess you could say, for Mythic Plus is just the damage isn't there. But one thing that I still think Pharaoh Druid does have going for it really well in terms of Mythic Plus is Primal Wrath. Being able to have an uncapped AoE skill while a lot of other melee DPS are having a capped AoE skill, I think is really, really something going for Pharaoh Druid's favor, and I hope it's something that doesn't go away. So I think with some appropriate number tuning, Pharaoh could be really, really solid in, you know, PvP, a Mythic Plus environment. And then from a raid environment, from what I've looked into them, I don't really plan on doing too much of any raiding. From what I've seen, a lot of people are saying that there's not a crazy reason to bring a Pharaoh Druid, and I'm gonna have to agree. You know, I think a Boomkin would just bring a little bit more to a raid. I think maybe if something like Leader of the Pack was accessible in PvE, you know, it could be something that we bring as a unique buff to a raid. But for me, that's not a biggest concern for me. You know, it's not a crazy concern that I have, because I don't really plan on doing much raiding. You know, the only raiding I would probably really do in Shadowlands is like maybe just a LFR or pugging a normal, or like if I really need a trinket from PvE, like if there's like some of like crazy PvE trinkets that overpowered, kind of like Drestagath and Claw from Battle for Azeroth, I'll go find a group, you know, to run the raid with. But my goal is to hopefully just like PvP as much as possible, and PvE only when required. So for those reasons, a lot of the PvE concerns between the two classes don't really affect me all that much, because my main worry is from a PvP perspective. So I want a class that's going to be fun, viable, and enjoyable in 2s, 3s, and battlegrounds. And I think for me, the Pharaoh Druid just kind of ticks my boxes a little bit more. Also, one of the people I plan on playing with really wants to play a Disciplined Priest. And so if I play a Shadow Priest, I won't be able to play with him. So that's also another thing in the favor of Pharaoh, where somebody who I really want to play with, you know, if I was to play Shadow Priest, the classes they just simply wouldn't line up. So just another point in favor of Pharaoh Druid. But that's just kind of where my mind was at, what I was thinking about when I wanted to choose my main going into Shadowlands. Those were kind of the things that I was considering. Let me know, though, for like I said, with you guys, what were you thinking about with your mains going into Shadowlands? What were you looking for out of a class? And then what class did you end up choosing? In the next video, I am going to be going over my PvP build for Shadowlands. I have been watching a lot of Pharaoh Druid streams for PvP, and I've been doing a lot of theory crafting, and I want to just talk to you guys about the build that I have planned, and I want to see what you guys think about it. And if you are a Pharaoh Druid player, I want to hear maybe what builds you're thinking about and what other stuff that you are considering for your Druid. So like I said, guys, if you like this video, smack a like on it, subscribe, of course, to keep up to date with the rest of the WoW content on my channel, and I hope you all enjoyed just listening to me kind of ramble a bit for like, 15.5 minutes, but appreciate you guys stopping by. Thank you very much. As always, I'm Dots Gaming, and I'll see y'all in the next one.